sure there will be, but we can start right about now. Looks like we've got 5 more. I'll let them in.
Okay. I'm just trying to see. Okay.
Yeah, I think we can go ahead and get going. Again, welcome everybody.
Okay, welcome. Welcome, welcome. What a night we have in store for you. We've got 2 wonderful events. First on the agenda tonight is something we normally do at our Laskiainen celebration, but this year, due to COVID, we decided to move the awarding of the sauna bucket to March, to this event, since we celebrated Laskiainen outside this year. We had a wonderful day in February. Thank goodness it was the week after the horrible cold, but we celebrated by a little bonfire in Como Park with Suomikulu. I think that everybody that was there can say they had a great time, and we did enjoy our winter day. But now, so back to that matter at hand, we're gonna do this sauna bucket award. So here I've got the sauna bucket, and we've got a new plaque in it. So due to COVID, we're going to be doing this a little differently. Since we can't do it in person, I'm doing it virtually. So you can, if you want to guess, you can guess and try to guess in the chat box who you think is the sauna bucket awardee as I go through it, okay? So this year's sauna bucket awardee is a regular FACA member and FinFest attendee, loves gardening, provides a home to stray cats that they've adopted over the years, worked at Metro State University and retired not that long ago, is married to a past FACA president. Their last name is the same as the area that they're from. Okay, provides graphic design for our newsletter and does a wonderful job at that. So I think if you don't know it by now, I think everybody knows it. I can safely say that enjoys her work on the Udacet. And this past fall, her dedication was unparalleled. She had a health problem and was on her way to the doctor, and she's trying to coordinate getting the newsletter done and out. So we really appreciate all that she does for us. So this year's sauna bucket is going to Darlene Esco. Yay, Darlene.
Yay!
So can we, Darlene, would you like to say anything? You're muted. It's in the lower left.
Yeah, there it is. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I said you could knock me out with a feather right now. No way, no way.
Yeah, she's earned it.
Well, we think you deserve it, and we really appreciate all you've done this year. So
Now I have to find
I
another
did trick
to
you
display it.
into coming tonight. So
No wonder you were so insistent.
Kiitos, Rikku.
so I will coordinate getting this to you in person too. So thank you, Darlene.
You are totally welcome, all of you.
Okay. So now,
Oh, boy.
congratulations to Darlene. Yay. Tonight, we're fortunate to have 4 of the world's greatest experts on the Finnish Saint Urho, and we have some other experts here as well. So, but I'm just saying we've got 4 of the world's greatest experts. We are so fortunate to have them. They've all kindly agreed to be part of our panel. We have with us, and please, kind of wave, we have Jimmy Johnson, who is the Honorary Consul for Finland from Northern Minnesota. Jimmy, can you wave or say hi?
Waving.
Oh, there he is, he's right. Okay, yep. Hey, Jimmy. We've got Honor Shaolin from Finland, Minnesota.
Right.
We've got Jan Hillstrom
Right here from Menagha.
from Menagha, and from Fairbault we have Luke Havumaki. There you go. So I'm going to let them all introduce themselves, and they're going to talk about how their communities or how they're connected to Saint Urho and what they know about the legend of Saint Urho. So while they're talking, I encourage you to use the chat function so we can ask questions or comments. And after they have their chance to each talk, then we can open it up and have a dialogue, which I know is going to be very spirited and fun. I know I'm looking forward to hearing the history and finding out once and for all, where did Saint Urho come from? What is the true legend? And I've got other questions that I want to get answered tonight. So, but first, we are going to have Jan Hillstrom has volunteered to lead us in the reciting of the Ode to Saint Urho. Am I
Which
still
one?
allowed to share? Do I still have the sharing function? Christina?
Yes, you can share your screen.
Okay, well, I'm going to share the Ode to Saint Urho. So if you want at home to mute yourselves and recite it along with Jan, please feel free while she leads us in the recitation of this epic
Ode
poem.
to Saint Urho. Uksi kuksi kulomavi. Santi Urho is the boy for me. He says out the hoppers as big as birds. Never before have I heard those words. He really told those pugs of green, bravest Finn I ever seen. Some celebrate for Saint Pat and his snakes, but Urho poika got what it takes. He got tall and strong from Vilia's hour and ate kalamoyaka every hour. That's why that guy could say those beetles that grew as thick as jack pine needles. So let's give a cheer in our best way on the 16th of March, St. Urho's Day.
Thank you very much, Jan. Okay, we're going to turn it over now to Jimmy Johnson from Virginia. Welcome, Jimmy, and I'm turning it over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Lise. Thank you for the introduction. A little background you asked to share with the people. I was born and raised up in Orr, Minnesota, my hometown. And my relationship with St. Urho came at rather a young age. My mother and father up there had a tavern, and they used to call it the Kapaka na Kaupunki, tavern in a town. And their business was specifically with retired lumberjacks. And a lot of them lumberjacks that they had as their customers, of course, were Finnish. And we had one old gentleman, and his name was Urho. And of course, every year around St. Urho's Day, when they started getting cranked up, of course, everybody was celebrating. Everybody thought, or he did, that they were celebrating for him and that he truly was St. Urho, which of course he wasn't, but you know, a beer once in a while does wonders. Going forward, my occupation is in the insurance business in Virginia, Minnesota. I've been in the business over 40 years. I have an association with the Virginia Co-op Credit Union, which itself started as a Finnish cooperative credit union and still do today. We were located in downtown Virginia, in what was located, the business was the Finnish Socialist Opera Hall. And from there, I told everybody I'm in the heart of Finntown, which my business was. Since the last 5 years, we built a brand new building out on the edge of not the outskirts of Virginia, but the outskirts of Finntown. So the road leads in there. And so now my moniker is we are at the gateway to Finntown in Virginia. That being said, other than my association with the Finnish Republic of Finland as an honorary consul, I get kind of involved in my Finnish heritage and my culture. So this is a real privilege and a pleasure to be able to share some thoughts and certainly give you my spin at the beginning here, because that's what we're here for, about St. Urho and some other tidbits. So I would start out by this. Hyvää iltaa ja tervetuloa. Antaksi. Minä olen puhua englantia. Means good evening and welcome. And excuse me, I'll speak English going forward. So St. Urho, a wonderful guy that he was, in Finnish translates to strong and brave. And why wouldn't this saint be strong and brave? His reincarnation, by all facts and matters, happened a long time ago in 1956, right here in the Queen City of Virginia on the Iron Range, deep within the lower bowels of the well-known famous Kettola's department store, Kettola's or Kettola's. Two employees, Richard Matson and Jean McCavick, were having a discussion on why Ireland had a celebration paying homage to St. Patrick while Finland had none. Well, it was then that Richard Matson, the Finnish fellow, of course, explained to McCavick, the Scot-Irish lady, that Finland did indeed have a pay honor to a Saint Henry, who had been celebrated by the Finnish Lutheran Church of Finland back in the days when Finland was a Grand Duchy of the Russian Empire. McCavick said, well, they celebrate St. Patrick's because he chased all the snakes out of Ireland. Matson said, well, no, wait, there's another Finn who's a saint, and by the name of Saint Urho, who chased the frogs out of Finland to save the grape crop, of course, and all the vines. So after much discussion, they sat down, a Scots-Irish lady and a Finn fella, and they composed a poem, which you just heard, about the brave and strong Saint Urho. So some say that Urho got his name really from the longest serving president of Finland, President Urho Kekkonen. Others say it's because Urho, the soon to be saint and patron, took the name because it was a strong name and a brave name. And you had to eat a lot of kalamoyaka and filia sour, which of course we know he did. The original date, though, was chosen for St. Urho's Day when it first originated. It was the 24th of May. And with the wearing of purple and Nile green colors. What a combination. However, other details were changed after the legendary professor, Dr. Sulo Havumaki, discovered them. And now I'll turn the program over to his son, Luke Havumaki, who has additional information on that very subject. I think he's right up, isn't he?
He is, he's next.
All right, take it away, Luke.
Okay, I'm Luke Havumaki. I'm a retired elementary school teacher. I've lived in Fairbault now for about 36 years, maybe 28. It's hard to remember when you get old. Now, I know that we have Robert Matson and frogs and May. I'm sorry, when I grew up with St. Urho being rediscovered, my father would never say anything about inventing. That was wrong. So this is almost like Tesla versus Edison. There's these two feelings, but I will continue with mine. My dad worked at a office with a lot of Irish workers, and he would remind them that, St. Patrick's Day, not a big deal, but St. Urho's Day, March 16th, is celebrated the day before St. Patrick's Day to tell people St. Patrick's Day is just around the corner and thus only celebrated by squares. My father left St. Paul and we moved up to Bemidji. I was barely born, so I lived Bemidji, my hometown. My dad got a job at the college and they said, what do you want to teach? He says, what does nobody want to teach? And they said, statistics. He says, great, I will teach statistics. And he did until his death, which was in 1970. Every year, we would have plans for a parade announced in the Bemidji Pioneer. And my dad would invite famous dignitaries. John Wayne was invited. Richard Nixon was invited. The only time we ever had a problem was when Spiro Agnew was invited. Normally, my dad would send the invitations out late so that there was no way that people could make it for the parade. Spiro Agnew thought it actually was a real parade, which would have been interesting. And he said, I can't make it. I would love to. They asked my father, well, what would you have done if Spiro Agnew showed up? He said, have a parade. And the parade route was going by the sewage treatment plant, moving along past the cemetery. Not very great spots in Bemidji. For years, though, we had that. I thought it was a real saint, okay? I did. I thought it should be on the calendar. Then one year, colleagues of my father went to Finland. They found a person who would translate a letter for them, which stated that they thanked Sula Havumaki for all his work with, promoting the Saint Urho. And they sent along fossilized grasshoppers and grapes in this translated letter. And my dad had a hard time translating it, but he couldn't admit that they weren't real. So he couldn't figure out what to do. So he ended up putting them in a display case in the college education building with a nice little plaque around it. As I said, my dad died in 1970. In 1960, he did not know St. Urho's Day. I mean, I was 12, but I figured everybody should know about it. We did find our namesake, which is a farm in the middle of Finland. And we came back, like a year and a half later, my father passed away. Since then, I have written letters. I see that I think I got one in the Finland area newspaper this week. I got one in the Star Tribune, didn't print it, but the Daily News did. And every year I have a parade scheduled in Fairbault, and every year it's canceled. This year it was canceled because of the Zoom activities, because it's very hard for people to march in place and look at their cell phone while they're marching. And, a poor guy rolled down the hill into our little kid park, and he should be getting out of the hospital shortly. Now, I did not think this all the way through. I have to admit this, but I brought everyone grasshopper cookies. And I'm not sure exactly how it works to get them to you. I think I can just hold it up to the camera and you can get one. Well, maybe it won't work that way, but I will tell you they're darn good. I would give them to my students every year when we had a St. Urho's Day party in my classroom. And I would say, if you're lucky, you'll get an antenna in your teeth. Because if you do, you get to bring the cookies next year. And I will finish with that. Thank you for having me. Continue.
Well, thank you, Luke. Next, we're going to move on to Jan Hillstrom from Menagha.
Okay, yeah, Menagha. Well, I've lived in Menagha all my life, and yeah, we've got a history of Saint Urho. Even was published by our newspaper back in the late 50s. They're telling about Urho, and so for our celebrations. Yeah, it started out, we'd have an imaginary parade, and then pretty soon other towns wanted to bring units to it, so we started a real parade. At first it was down a block of Main Street and back up. And now we go around a block. We do crown a king and queen. And we try to have some entertainment on the Friday night. One of our entertainment had been Kip Peltoniemi with his accordion. And we've had a variety. of different ones. And yeah, the Urho statue. And that's always of interest because it's a group of people in disguise, but they take off their clothes, their top clothes, and then put other clothes back on. So they're changing, the changing of the guard. Let's see, I guess that's, yeah, we even have tried the bar stool races and almost anything that, oh, culfing was the big thing for a few years. We would save old Christmas trees and put them then out on the lake to mark the holes for culfing. And they'd have to use a nice colored ball to hit it around the course.
There is a question in the chat. When was the statue in Menagha erected?
My family was at the dedication of the statue, and my son had just been born. So that was 1982.
Okay.
When my mom broke a bottle of wild Irish rose wine on St. Urho's foot.
Oh,
Aha.
okay, yeah, and so we had first had, the first one was made of wood. Yeah, we had a Greek by the name of Papadakis carve it, but so it didn't last. And Havumaki always threatened to send the beavers down from Bemidji to eat it up. So then our next one was of fiberglass, and that's lasted for many years now. I think that's about it from Menagha.
Okay, well, thank you, Jan. And the last panelist is Honor Schauland from Finland.
Hi, everybody. I'm from Isabella, Minnesota, which is 15 miles up the road from Finland, Minnesota, but they were both places that were settled by Finnish immigrants. And I grew up going to the Finland, Minnesota St. Urho's celebration as a kid. And there was actually an old man named Urho Albeck who would wear a top hat and a tailcoat and a purple bow tie. And he would stand outside the Finland Co-op store shaking people's hands and saying Happy St. Urho's Day. And I thought he was the real deal until I was a bit older. You know how some kids believe in Santa Claus? Well, I believed in Santa Claus too, but I believed in St. Urho and I knew where he lived and everything. I've lived in this area my whole life, except for a brief stint where I went to college, but I have a confession to make, which is that I am not of Finnish descent at all, but I love Finnish culture because I grew up with it, and all my friends are Finnish, and I actually live in the old Finn Hall, and that's my house. This house that I'm in right now was the old Finn Hall, and there's the remains of a sauna that's got a dovetail log building, and the hill behind my house is called Impivara from the Hill and Seven Brothers. And this is like, all my neighbors are these wonderful old Finnish people, and I just love it. So when the St. Urho celebration in Finland, Minnesota started in 1976, before I was born, and I believe it was meant to be, I cannot speak to the the origin of St. Urho. That is not the mystery for me to solve, but I've always heard of Richard Matson, and I've always heard of Sulo Havumaki, and I have to give them both an immense amount of credit for the for inventing this wonderful thing that we celebrate every year. And in 1976, I believe many small towns in the US were doing some kind of event for the US bicentennial celebration. And Finland, Minnesota decided to do a St. Urho's Day celebration in celebration of that bicentennial. And so that's why it got started. And their first parade was March 6th, 1976. And they had a snowstorm, a parade in a snowstorm, miserable weather, but they had such a good time that they decided to do it again. And it's happened every year. And this year is the 46th annual. Our parade will be tomorrow. And I got involved in 2007 because the group of people who had been putting St. Urho's Day in Finland on for many, many years and doing a lot of work decided to retire. And so they had a meeting and they said, anyone who wants to see this continue should come and we will teach you and show you what to do and we'll pass it off to you, to new people, and won't that be wonderful? And I was the only new person who showed up. And so they were very kind to me and they all helped out and gave advice, and actually, you know, they didn't quit for real. They kind of put me in charge so that they couldn't be yelled at anymore for the things that people wanted to holler about, but so they couldn't be blamed anymore, but they put me in charge and then you know, help me know what to do, because you have to our parade, as far as I understand, I've said this and I don't know if it's true, but I say this all the time, that we're the only parade that shuts down a state highway. And so we have to apply for a permit from MnDOT to do that. And sometimes I have had to have my my elderly community members actually lean on the MnDOT officials a little bit to make sure that that happens, because every once in a while we get someone new at MnDOT who doesn't understand about St. Urho's Day. And so far they've been very kind and they've always given us a permit. So yeah, we are going ahead this year despite COVID-19, and it's an outdoor event, so you know, people can be distant, do it safely, and our theme this year is survival mode, because we've just
And you can get a great shirt.
Quite the year. And yes, Mr. Havumaki has a shirt that he's gotten.
And a button.
So that's what I know.
So besides the parade, what else are you doing then tomorrow then?
The parade is the main event this year. Usually we do more. Usually we have a big event at our community center where there's music and craft vendors and a lot of cultural stuff that goes on. And this year we can't, decided it would just be safer not to do an indoor event. And so we're just focusing on the parade. The parade is about a mile long through, you know, Highway 1 is our main road. And so it comes down the hill through town. And while we are waiting, you can see the parade coming down the hill. We have a tug of war on the Baptism River Bridge. And we decided we could do that again this year. We would just space out we put little marks on the rope so that people are 6 feet apart. And that's what we do while we wait for the parade to arrive. So there's that kind of, and then there will be actually also Steve Sokola from Virginia, or he's from over that direction. He is going to be coming. Steve Sokola's overpopulated one-man band, and he's going to be playing his accordion and his putting on his show, I think outdoors, and maybe even traveling around. He's quite an amazing fella. He can play the accordion and ride a skateboard at the same time.
Do things I can't do either.
Indeed.
So Jan, are you having your parade this year too, or
Yeah,
not?
we had it
this-
last Saturday.
You had it last Saturday.
It was kind of a last
Okay.
minute thing, and so we didn't have a whole lot in the parade or a whole lot of people watching.
No, I think it's a different year. So I just got some questions, and I think, Christine, I think we could maybe unmute people and let people ask questions. Did you have anything more, Honor?
Well, I see a question, somebody asking about our statue here in Finland, Minnesota. I don't remember the name of the guy who carved it, but it was erected in the early 80s. I want to say 1982 or something like that. And it's wooden. It's been kind of redone, or like every once in a while it gets a new coat of stain, and we've patched some holes in it. And I do want to at some point probably gonna have to look at replacing it and the fiberglass and that, because we can't have, our town can't not have an Urho statue. That's just the deal. And I don't know if any of you have been to Finland, Minnesota, but we always joke around about it. It's on the corner of Highway 7 and Highway 1, and there's a little road that goes behind it. So we have a triangle. We joke around that our town's too small to have a square. We have a triangle instead, but the St. Urho statue is in that triangle.
So I guess I'm asking this of both and Honor. How many people normally come to the parades?
I guess ours, in a normal year, we've never had an accurate count, but I would say in a big year, 1,000 people.
Wow.
It's packed. Our town is 150, 200 people normally, and we have 4 bars and the Finland Co-op and like a mile of highway, and it is packed full of people. And before this year happened, we were considering trying to get someone with a drone camera to take photos so we could have some idea of how big the crowd is, just because all of us that would be wanting to know how many people we're so busy doing all the things that we don't have time to run around counting. But it's amazing. And I don't expect as many people this year, but I just feel like if we have it at all, we're doing good. We're surviving. So
Yeah,
Jan, how many come to Menagha?
I would say we usually only have about 200 or 300. But then that's not our main event for the year either.
yeah, in Finland, Minnesota, this is like, we have a couple other community events, but this is the big one for us.
So I know we also, Luke, you said you have a parade that you cancel in Fairbault. I think there's one in Cokato as well. Does anybody know about that one? Because I don't see Harvey.
And if
Jody?
people were smart, there'd be some in other towns.
The one in Cokato, Harvey did a write-up for the newsletter, and it was very tongue-in-cheek, right? He named the Grand Marshal, and you better not blink or just a moment, sorry, or you might miss it. And so I think in past years they had a picture of it in the Cokato Enterprise Dispatch. And he would go around to the local Finnish-owned businesses and make sure that everybody was wearing purple, or else they might get pinched, right? So he makes sure that the people in Dassel Cokato, that they carry on the traditions and that they observe St. Urho's Day as it should be.
So I've got a question. So why the purple and the green? So Jimmy, Luke, Jan, Honor,
I'm
any
gonna
of
go
you
on,
Why for the purple and the green?
I'm gonna go on a limb, and this is just a kind of my direction that I would think. Purple for, of course, the grape wine. Makes sense. Green for the color of the trees that are all over Finland.
Mhm.
Put the two together, you got St. Urho's colors.
In our household, it was green because that was the color of grasshoppers.
That's another good answer. Absolutely. So maybe that's a better one. Put your grasshopper in your wine and now you got green and
Yeah.
purple.
And maybe frogs.
Or maybe a frog.
So Darlene had said that she knew it originally as frogs. And so why did it change from frogs to grasshopper?
I think that was Professor Havumaki that had that, right?
I think it was, I'm not sure, again, Jimmy knows much more Finnish than I do. I learned how to count to 10, ask for a small milk, pieni maito.
Yeah.
And I think heinäsirkka was such a great word to say
Right.
for grasshoppers. I think that, other than that, I'm not sure. My father had a different sense of humor.
Well, who came up with heinäsirkka? That was heinäsirkka. Yeah.
That was on Dad's essay.
Okay, I was told at the Yolu, I was gonna say the heinäsirkka, and someone that comes from Finland told me I could not say that because it is a very bad word in Finland.
Oh.
Well,
Well, it could be, but in the United States, we say things we want.
actually,
Louise,
the
this,
heathen is
Yeah.
the bad word. Menagha heathen is the bad word. It's like hell.
Right.
Yeah,
oh, it's
heinous
grasshopper go to hell.
yeah. My
Yeah,
father always
Yeah,
told me it meant grasshopper, go away.
nah.
So I was very surprised to learn
Right,
the
that's
HE
the
hockey
polite
sticks.
version, isn't it? I have a funny story about that when the statue was erected in Finland, Minnesota, that they now have a very nice little plaque that's there. And it says grasshopper, grasshopper, go away. And it also says it in Finnish. But that the first plaque wasn't a real plaque. It was just a little sign. And it just said, it didn't say heinäsirkka, heinäsirkka. It said the rest of it. So it just said, go to hell. And someone came along and said, well, that's not very nice. We need to have a better plaque than that.
No wonder the town's small.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a little surprised at Christmas time when we changed it. We changed what I said versus the go to hell thing. So I found the original copy of the poem, and the poem got changed as well. So is that also Luke's father that changed the poem and adjusted the poem a bit?
Well,
or
I could add a little something. The original poem, the one that was designed by the two folks in Virginia in 1956 on butcher paper from the basement of Kettola's department store, is on display at Iron World in Chisholm. So it's like a very historic document. And in that one, it also talks about the frogs. Now, I think it just happened to be a way to say it. Frogs in Finnish, there's no F's. The letter F doesn't exist, but rogs do. And that sounded like a nice, at that time, to put it into the poem. Chase those rogs away. And of course, but heinäsirkka is really the popular one, and the grasshoppers. So that's, I guess, that's a mystery.
It is.
We'll only know if you happen to, Luke, if you find some papers that your dad had, how did he come around that? Maybe he knew somebody, but right now it's a mystery who did and
It is.
I'd like to
People
add
say that,
something to this. May I speak?
yes.
I I've been in my family home in Virginia, Minnesota since or I should say since 2020, June. However, Dick Matson and my mother were classmates, and she also worked in Kitola's toy department in the basement in the 1950s. They were very close friends, Dick and Carolyn Matson. And while I don't remember all of the history, I do remember over later years when the Mazabi Daily News, in articles written, and Jimmy will remember this, articles written by Clarence Ivonen, really did detail the history of what had happened. And I really think that it took Dick Matson by surprise about how this took on. And it's very interesting because the original poem was not just by the Finnish American employees at Kitola's department store, but by others. And one recommendation I would make to all Minnesota communities, and I guess this comes, I retired from the Texas A&M University Extension Service. We have it also in Minnesota as the Minnesota Extension Service. They are very interested in economic development by way of tourism. And I do think that there may be resources available to help communities to develop sort of important events. And in our age of trying to diversify and respect all kinds of ethnicities, whoever they are within our communities, maybe they could give some pointers to our community movers and shakers about things that could be done to attract more tourism and thus heighten the awareness of what small communities have to offer. End of my diatribe here.
Thank you, Nancy. That's really interesting. And that's a great idea too.
So I'd like to add something too. We went to Helsinki and saw the St. Urho's pub there. And I know that the University of Turku reenacts the play every year on St. Urho's Day, and they study it in their folklore classes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like trying to train my cousins, who I still know in Finland, to celebrate St. Urho's Day. So I'd encourage all of you who still have people in Finland to keep spreading it, because it's kind of, to me, very amazing that we've actually created a legend in our time. Like, we can track it's happening. So keep on. I mean, I just want to see it keep going, because it has actually gotten back to Finland.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There's actually.
Well, thanks for sharing that. I didn't know that.
They study it at the University of Turku.
Yes.
It's a social phenomenon.
And they reenact it. Well, the folklore
Right. We
classes
had
do,
a fellow from the University
Yeah.
of Turku come and attend our celebration a few years back, and he just had a wonderful time learning about just the kind of cultural things that have happened here, of people of Finnish descent, and the ways that they kind of kept their connection and their culture alive that, were quite different from what was going on back home. And we had a great time showing him around.
Actually, in Turku, I'm a little bit familiar with that, having been there. They study, and it dovetails exactly what you had said, folkloristic comparative religion and ethnology. Now, I'm not a wizard when it comes to the word ethnology, so I had to look it up. It's a study of exactly what you said, comparative human groups. Why are the Finns similar to the Finns here and the Finns in Finland? And I know we're getting off the subject, but nothing blows a Finn out of the water from Finland when he comes here to communities like Menagha, Sadika, Finland, Suomi, the Iron Range. And here's people speaking what they call vanhan Suomi, grandmas or mummus, old Finn, grandma.
Yeah.
And they just get all warm and fuzzy. And so really getting that connection, and just like you said, sending information, getting people to buy into it in Finland, Finland, Suomi, is a great deal, is a great opportunity to bring that connection together.
Well, I think this is just fabulous that the people from in Finland, Minnesota, and Menagha and others are keeping Saint Urho's alive. So that was kind of one of our thoughts on the board of FACA. We thought, you know, let's find out what everybody's doing and try to get the community so we understand more about Saint Urho. I grew up on the Iron Range, and I'm in Bovey. And Bovey had a community hall, like everybody, you know, all the little towns, and they'd have a big dance for Saint Urho's Day every year. And people would come from all over. My aunt and uncle from Cloquet, another cousin from Eveleth. They would come and just have a great old time. I'm sure copious amounts of alcohol were consumed and whatnot as they were dancing. And but you know, it'd be fun to get something. I don't know if we could get something like that again. So, and you guys are continuing it on in Menagha and Finland, and we got a great, wonderful community down here in the Twin Cities.
Louise, I was going to mention, since he is my namesake, I've had some interest, you know, in the whole business, and of course, I've known that he came after I did, but we've tried to attend some different celebrations in different parts of the state. Like we've been to Menagha, Kettle River, Duluth, Cloquet, Northfield, Minneapolis. We haven't made it to the Finland one. We'd like to make it there sometime. But I wonder how many towns, you know, in Minnesota actually do have celebrations, or they have had at times.
Well, and then there's also Wisconsin too, because I know someone from Oulu, and they have something they do down there. And there's a bunch of other Finnish communities that I know they have some kind of marking of the celebration in some way. It's different every community, but I think that's really fascinating. Yeah, Upper Peninsula, Michigan especially, but yeah, Michigan.
But
This is Luella.
Oh,
But it's Minnesota.
one of the things that I've enjoyed is the fact that of my three siblings, myself and them, three of us are teachers, or were teachers. We've all retired. But anywhere we taught or any place we've been, we've shared St. Urho's Day. You know, my brother and sister for a while were out in California, which I guess it would fit in with the whole California, you know, clientele. Sure, we'll celebrate. What are you having? But, you know, again, I'm thinking about the Finland and stuff and the Finnish people. And I can remember when we went to Finland. And again, I was 12. I was the youngest. And my father rented a Volkswagen Beetle for us while we were there for a month. Now, it has two seats in front. That's mom and dad. Has a little bench in back. Well, that was Tana, Britta, and Matthew. Has a luggage compartment in the back, which was me. I got to see most of Finland through the little mirror window in the back. But as we're driving up in the countryside, and I'm saying, this looks just like around, you know, your hometown, Dad. This is like Hibbing and Ely. Yeah, we could have saved a lot of money if we just had blindfolded you, put you in a car, drove you around, said, hey, we're in Finland. Look, birch trees. Look, clean lakes. Look, a sauna. And I'm going, oh, well, yeah, but I would never had to get a passport for that. Yeah, it's an amazing place, amazing group of people. Look at how smart all these people are. You can just look at them to see how intelligent they are.
I guess what stands out to me is the sense of humor.
I don't know if that works that way.
I guess you have to hit chat.
So someone's asked, do they celebrate St. Urho's Day in Florida? Probably what's that, Lake Worth, the big Finnish community down there?
I'm sure the Suomitalo, they have a gathering, at least not maybe this year because of COVID, but in past years, whether they have a parade or not, I don't know.
Did you know, Urho?
Oh,
I saw you.
yeah.
I was just going to say that at least my family, a number of my siblings are down there right now, and they do themselves, among themselves at least, they have some Saint Urho gear and stuff. Pam just mentioned that, and some year they did a Saint Urho Day cruise.
The marching bands would have a really hard time with that. You know, the breathing alone makes it quite difficult.
Well, I guess they've exhausted this topic.
There was a woman who lived in Golden Valley named, I think, Laulainen, who carried on the tradition of St. Urho's Day knowledge. Do you remember her from WCCO radio days?
No.
Eric Escalove, when he was on CCO, would always mention it.
And so did Cam. He would mention it as well. He was from Eveleth on WCCO.
Well, maybe for this, we ought to try to capture where all they do celebrate, and every year put this out as where you can do St. Urho's Day celebrations. So that's something that we can have an article about, huh, Jody? Darling? So we can capture that. So any other burning questions anybody have? Just feel free to ask, please.
I don't have a question, but this is Meryl and Kemi. My husband was watching the news tonight, and they do a study every year of the people, the happiest country in the world. And he saw a banner go across the screen tonight that said Finland was voted again, or the happiest people in the world. So I know they won last year too. And the Finns' reaction is, how could that be us? You know, so I saw a really funny video last year, some guy on this, but evidently they were voted the happiest people in the world.
Maybe
again this year.
Maybe it has to do with voting around St. Urho's Day.
They are happy.
Well, I think we're gonna have to have maybe something where we try to campaign, and, you know, St. Patty's Day, they have the green beer. Maybe we have them have the purple beer.
Purple beer, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm for that.
They call that wine.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's pretty good.
That would be more apropos with the legend.
But I've got to show, and I did see Dan Celine has his beer can from, I guess, Menagha. Did Menagha sell these beers? The St. Urho's Day beer?
They had them made up.
Well, I've just got to show you. A girlfriend gave this to me in 1970. It was before I went to the Army. 1978, 79. I took it with me all over the world, everywhere I moved, and they would say, we can't put beer. And I'm like, oh, this is special. This isn't really beer. Look at it. And so they would do it. Well, a couple of years ago, this popped up and there was nothing in it. It must have evaporated. So if you've got it, so Dan, I see that. Be careful about drinking it. That's all I'm just saying. St. Urho may not be
Well,
protected.
they did
anymore,
manufacture a whole bunch of cans empty. And yeah.
Oh, really?
Well, that's wrong.
Oh, I thought they had beer in them.
I
thought I was smuggling contraband all these years.
Would you please step out of line, ma'am?
I have one other recommendation, and that is, you know, the University of Minnesota I'm not sure where it's located, whether it is in the history department or whether it is in the library, but they have had immigrant archives collection. And the Finnish collection has been a fairly large one. Do we know whether there is a sort of a Saint Urho's collection within that? If not, I wonder if that wouldn't be possible by contacting the curators of those archives so that communities could send records and there would then be a permanent record of what's going on in communities across the state of Minnesota.
One of the places that is an archival depository, it's not in Minnesota, but it's in Hancock, Michigan at Finlandia University. And they've got an enormous amount from the 3 to 4 state region area on not maybe perhaps St. Urho, but certainly all things Finnish. And that's a place that people come from all over the world, and typically Finland, even to check their ancestral archives there. But the U might have the same thing, I would hope.
It's my understanding that the Finnish collection is quite large. The Ukrainian collection, you may be able to tell from my last name that I married into a Ukrainian family, is the largest at that particular collection. However, the Finnish collection has been quite large, and I sometimes go there to find out things that I don't know about. And I'm thinking about contributing some family archives actually to that collection. But thank you for mentioning the Finlandia University collection.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, I'm interested in that as well, because I've often thought that, you know, we're coming up on, soon enough, 50 years of our celebration. And, you know, we have old photos that need to be, digitized or something done to preserve them. And some records of what we did. We did a lot of work on it for the 40-year celebration, but we really want to probably put some kind of a book together or something for the 50-year celebration. And I'm not, it's a big undertaking. But I've often thought that there should be kind of a broader sort of archive of this sort of stuff.
Yeah, that sounds like Luke. Do you have a whole bunch of stuff from what your father had?
Of the papers that my dad had, most of them went to my sisters. I would get the last kid in the family's stuff. So most of them went to the older siblings. The stuff I have is either stuff that we've collected over the years. We have a can of the St. Urho's beer. We have the St. Urho 316 mug. It's almost as good as John 316, but put coffee in it.
Oh, I didn't get that first.
Or purple liquids. And yeah, my wife made my St. Urho vest. She's made wall hangings for us. It's kind of fun. She's German, though.
I think it's really important because Finnish American history is different from history of Finland. And I think that what immigrants have achieved in the United States deserves to be documented. And with all of the communities in Minnesota and perhaps elsewhere who have contributed to the St. Urho celebration and history, I think it needs to be preserved somehow for future generations, because I'm not sure that my Finnish relatives in Finland have any concept really of what we are as Finnish Americans.
That's a really good point. And
it was in a comic strip years ago.
St. Urho isn't a comic strip?
Yeah, it was called Animate Home. And the guys, I'll read it to you, just like Franklin Roosevelt or those people who read the old newspapers. Ouch, why did you pinch me? Because you're not wearing any purple. Purple, it's green, and it's St. Patrick's Day. It's not till tomorrow. No, it's purple, and today is St. Urho's Day. Saint who? Saint Urho, the patron saint who saved the Finnish grape industry by driving the grasshoppers out of Finland. Little Donnie Aula told me in my class, look what my daughter did to me. Hey, that's a lovely shade of purple. But yeah, this was in the Star Tribune. Must be about 20 years ago now, but we've saved it.
Well, Nancy, I think you've got a great suggestion that we do need to save it for future generations. So that'll be another one for us to think about how we do this. Well, I'm going to wrap this up where we've done an hour and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Is there anybody else that has any other questions or would like to make comments or whatever?
So would you like to hear the St. Urho's Day parade poem?
Yes.
There were ajos, altos, basos, and gallios, pulios, bosos, and halakainens too. Cardulas and rayalas and flatbread homemade, all dressed in green and purple for St. Urho's Day parade. There were erkilas and sarkilas, beldos and harias, sepelas and hepakaskis too. Kinunens and sekinens and knitted socks homemade, all dressed in green and purple for St. Urho's Day parade. There were jaris, saris, pariamas and lollies, makis, kaskis, and kaskaniemis too. Matilas and markalas and moyaka homemade, all dressed in green and purple for St. Urho's Day parade. There were saris, salmis, saukos, and alayokis, perolas, besolas, and keskitalos too. Dronas and raunas and filia homemade, all dressed in green and purple for St. Urho's Day parade. There were mekalas, niemolas, gellas, and lindulas, nikkaris, radikas, and horakainens too. Tormas and haryus and smoked fish homemade, all dressed in green and purple for St. Urho's Day parade. There were Rotsalainens, Norjalainens, Irish, and Danskalainens, Hollanders, Polanders, Lowland Dutchmen too. Fathers and mothers and kids that were homemade, all dressed in green and purple for St. Urho's Day parade.
Very good.
Well, that's
Thank
wonderful.
you.
I want to hear from Arlene. How come there were no putikas in Sabika?
I think that's probably was Menaghas, probably for the families in Menagha. The putikas were in Sabika. But it was interesting though that I remember when I was in school in Sabika and there was the Seppala family that moved from the country of Finland into, first it was in the Nimrod area and eventually then they went back to Finland, then they came back and then moved, kind of settled into the Menagha area. And anyway, there was a contest as to what would St. Urho look like? And so my classmate, Rita Seppala, then came up with a drawing. And I remember this, that was the chainsaw artist, then used that drawing to create the first St. Urho statue. And so it was pretty neat. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I know her mother is still living in Menagha. Her father passed away just not too long ago. And Rita unfortunately passed away beforehand. But those are really, and we get this, I still get the Sabika Menagha newsletter or the paper. And so there's always lots of pictures in there of St. Urho's Day, of the parade. And I remember the bar stool races and the golfing and so on else. So it's really fun to be able to read those stories.
Oh, that's fun. Well, thank you, Arlene. Okay, well, I want to thank everybody for coming to our St. Urho's Day celebration. I really enjoyed this and I hope you did too. If you're joining us for the first time, but I think I recognized almost everybody, please consider joining our wonderful Finnish group. You can take a look at our Facebook page, our website, And this program, you can access it on our website, probably in a couple days. There'll be a YouTube video, so it'll be up there for you to watch again. Remember that tomorrow there's a book club session. It's going to be the 4th book that we've been talking about. It's Under the North Star. That's at 2 p.m. tomorrow. And then on the 28th of March, we're having a Kaviaika. And that's one thing that we've started last month. And it's a chance for us to get together and just have casual conversation. There's no program, no structure. It's just a chance for friends to get together, have a cup of coffee, have a cookie or a biscuit, and just sit and chat for an hour. One last thing I want to talk about is keep a lookout for an email next week. But we're going to be sending something about Schauland scholarships. So there will be Schauland scholarships that FACA will be giving out this year. And the details will be in the email, and they'll also be in the newsletter. But Kathy Jackson has so graciously is going to be running that again this year. So